Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, you all are having a wonderful day today. So, when it comes down to it, I thought that I would review this little video that I found very particularly interesting. And I'm not really sure if I'm going to review the whole video because I don't know if I want to make this too long. But this video, of course, is going to be that about the Ryan Garcia versus Gervonta Tank Davis fight. And of course, for those of you that did not end up hearing the results, Ryan Garcia ended up getting knocked out, I believe, in the seventh round, which is pretty much what I predicted. I think that I predicted that the knockout was going to come a little bit later on because I didn't really know which version of Gervonta Tank Davis was purely going to show up in this fight. But of course, a lot of people are now criticizing Ryan Garcia, which of course is something that you expect because Ryan Garcia had a great amount of promotion. There was a lot of hype behind this fight. And really, with any fight, really with any loss that you're going to take, even with some of your victories, you're going to get a great amount of criticism. That's just how it is. That's a part of the boxing life. That's a part of being, on that not just celebrity level, but in terms of that great level. Now, I don't think that Ryan Garcia has really proved himself to be that of a great boxer. Of course, at least an all-time great boxer, at least as of yet, if he maybe one day can potentially get to that level. But of course, he's going to make it to a level that most people are not going to make it to. And when you make it to that type of level, you're going to have a lot of people that like you, but potentially even more people that don't like you. So it just is what it is. But very interesting. A lot of people are actually saying that they believe that Ryan Garcia personally gave up in the fight. I thought that I would give my opinions about it. Andrew Ruiz personally said that he believed that Ryan Garcia gave up in the fight. He's not the only one to say that for this fight. So I thought that I would kind of tune in, give my little thoughts. Once again, I don't know how long this video is going to be, but let's get straight into it.
Man, Gervonta did what he had to do, man. He won the fight, but I was going for Ryan, but he gave up, man. I feel like he gave up. I feel like he should have did what he had to do to win the fight. When we get down, we got to get back up, man. We got to ask for God for that victory. When we get knocked down, we got to ask for God for that victory. But I feel like that's what he should have
done. Let me tell you what, you always know when it's a Mexican boxer or a Mexican boxing fan or a Latino boxing fan, but a Mexican especially, when they criticize a fighter, because they always come up with the same answer. Oh man, he got knocked out, and he didn't have any heart. He never had the heart in the first place. That's what they say every time. I remember when Victor Ortiz, I remember when he ended up getting knocked out a couple times in his career, and people said that he had no heart. I don't think it is that these people don't necessarily have any heart. I think that any boxer that steps into the ring has heart. Now you can say that the determination and the doggedness, that maybe that could be a little bit of an issue, or the confidence in themselves. But I think that all these fighters have heart. And Ryan Garcia, did the body punch look severely hard to me? It didn't look that hard, but you never truly know how hard it is. I'm not in there in the boxing ring, and that's why I don't really criticize these boxers to the highest of degrees, unless I do believe that you actually did quit when I thought that you had more left in the tank. And one could maybe argue that Ryan Garcia had more left in the tank, but to be quite honest with you, he was losing the majority of the rounds anyway. He was starting to get pieced up a little bit, at least hit consistently. And pretty much every time that he would start to open up his offense, Gervonta Tank Davis was starting to counter him. So when he hit him with that body shot, I knew that Ryan Garcia, that he looked a little bit hurt once he started backing up. And if you took a look at the video, so did Gervonta Tank Davis, because Gervonta Tank Davis smiled and he opened his mouth and said, "Oh shit, he's hurt," or something along that line, if you see the right angle of it, if you see that video. So Ryan Garcia, I don't know what type of body shot that he took. It didn't look severely hard to me. But we know that Gervonta Tank Davis, that he is an A-plus level puncher, no doubt about it. So you never know. So once again, I don't really go too hard on these fighters unless it was like, per se, a Guillermo Rigondeaux versus, say, Vasily Lomachenko situation where you made a bullshit excuse to pretty much get out of the fight and said, "Oh, I broke my hand and that's the reason why I had to quit." Or when Ricardo Mayorga did it against Miguel Cotto. That's the only time that I pretty much give out criticism, because I say, no, that's bullshit. Okay? And especially Guillermo Rigondeaux. Guillermo Rigondeaux, no offense to him, but he kind of went out like a punk in that fight against Vasily Lomachenko. At least Ryan Garcia, he tried in the fight. He really tried to get his offense off. But we don't really know how hard that body shot was. And of course, anyone who knows that body shot, it was a liver shot. And that is probably the most painful and detrimental punch that you can take in the boxing world, no doubt about it.
I still feel Ryan should have done more, man. He should have done more. He should have.
But let me say this. I understand where Andrew Ruiz is getting at when you say that you have to ask God for that victory. What Andrew Ruiz means, and this not only goes in the boxing world, but this also goes in certain times in life as well. And I'm not trying to get too psychological or deep here, but there's going to be certain times in your life to where it's going to be like, wow, I'm not really sure if I can make it out of this one. For those of you that might have mental conditions, or maybe you're running low on money or something like that, there's going to be certain times where you have to dig deep. And a lot of those times when people have to do that, I understand what Andy is saying. They have to turn to a God or a higher power or something of that sort. And they have to really, really dig deep inside of themselves, especially in the boxing match. And this is a part of what makes boxing so intriguing, because a lot of the times in boxing, in those situations, they have to dig down, in a life or death situation, at least in their mind. So I understand what Andrew Ruiz is saying, but at the end of the day, once again, Ryan Garcia, I think that he tried. One could argue if he tried his best or not. But to be honest, in my view, I think that he did. I think that he did try his best. I just think that Gervonta Tank Davis, I just think that he's the better fighter. It just is what it is. And on top of that, I think he's the harder puncher. I think that Ryan Garcia, he's a very skilled boxer in certain categories, but he just has too many faults. So like I said, we'll see what he does later on. But one thing I'll give Ryan Garcia credit is this. I haven't heard that many excuses. Now, of course, I did hear him say that apparently he didn't feel too great, heading into the ring because of the weight drain, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, he also said that, it wasn't that big of a deal. Listen, Ryan, at the end of the day, I don't truly believe, doesn't mean that maybe it wasn't, but I don't truly believe that the quote-unquote weight drain was that big of a deal. Ryan Garcia is a guy that seemed to make the weight relatively easily. He didn't really look that drained to me. Just in my personal view, I just think that he got beat by the superior fighter. But once again, I give Ryan Garcia credit. He handled this loss relatively well. He seems to be in somewhat of a good mindset even after the loss. So hopefully for him, he's able to come back. Do I believe that he'll be able to? We'll see. Like I said, I would love to see a fight between him and Rolly Romero or him and Isaac Pitbull Cruz, and neither of those fights would be easy for him. So we'll see.
Risk his life more. He should have risked his life more.
Wow. Ryan Garcia's former gym mate, stablemate, Andy Ruiz Jr., former heavyweight champion.
And once again, you notice what Andy Ruiz said, and that not only goes for boxing, but that really goes for life in general. And once again, I'm not trying to get too deep here or sound like too cliche. But when you've been in certain situations like those, and I think that all of us have at one point in time or another, you are going to have to risk your life in some sort of potential way, not always necessarily in a bad way, but to transcend sometimes those demons or sometimes what ends up happening. You are going to have to take it to the next level. You're going to have to get out of your comfort zone and really, as Andy Ruiz would say, risk your life in terms of trying to get to that next level, in terms of sometimes that you have to get out of your comfort zone to really accomplish greatness or to get to that next best step in your life. And Ryan Garcia, once again, I don't think that it isn't that he didn't try. Now, sure, he could have got back up and probably got battered even more. But at the end of the day, I just don't think that he really could have done any more. Just my personal view of it.
Says Ryan should have got back.
Now, some may say, well, Ryan Garcia could have done, what Antonio Margarito used to do. And, of course, Margarito was a cheater. But, Margarito, one thing you'll say about him is that he had tremendous heart and he had a tremendous chin. Sure, you can say that he could have went out like Deontay Wilder or that of, Antonio Margarito or something like that. When Margarito fought Shane Mosley or Wilder fought Tyson Fury. But sometimes that's not always the best thing to do. Ryan Garcia is a young fighter. I believe that he's 23, 24 years old. And sometimes it's better sometimes to take the knee. I'm not saying that it's great to quit, of course, necessarily, but Ryan Garcia wasn't winning that fight. And if he truly believes that it was a shot, at least in my view, that was fight ending, and it looked like it may have been, well then, I believe it. Because once again, liver shots, those shots are no joke.
Up and risk his life more than he did in his knockout loss versus Gervonta Tank Davis. That's what I want to talk about in this video. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I am back with some more boxing. For starters, let me say shout out to everybody. You made the Boxing Ego Watch Party, BWP, another massive success. So, shout out to everybody who sent a Cash App, joined, and became a channel member, PayPal, Zelle, Super Chats. I really appreciate it. You know, I'm just going to keep growing the channel. We did great numbers. Listen, I'm doing pay-per-view numbers, and it's just me, Dolo, by myself. What you know about it. The best in the business. Now, that clip you heard at the beginning was former stablemate out of the Eddie Reynoso gym, because they were at the same time, the Canelo gym. Andy Ruiz, former heavyweight champion, and he was basically expressing his thoughts in the Ryan Garcia fight. He says, congrats to Tank, or, Tank did what he had to do, but I was really hoping that Ryan Garcia would get back up and do more, because you got to believe in God and, this, that. You guys heard the clip at the beginning, so I'm just going to paraphrase from that. If you didn't hear it, then too bad for you, or you can hit.
I understand where Andrew Ruiz is coming from, and especially that victory that he had over Anthony Joshua. I think that in Andrew Ruiz's mind, he felt that Ryan Garcia kind of quit and didn't give himself enough of a chance. And one could debate that, because Ryan Garcia, you could tell after that knockdown that he was very timid to throw after that. But you could just tell that he knew in his mind that his regular hook was not working, and that his regular shots were not working, and that this was just a risky fight, and that if he really overextended or really got his offense off, and tried to make Gervonta uncomfortable, which is what you were supposed to do in the fight. But, Gervonta was just too sharp, just too clean of a puncher, and just too intelligent. So, once again, but Andrew Ruiz, once again, of course, because of that fight with Anthony Joshua, especially, I think that he especially thinks that, when you dig deep like that, a lot of the times it can pay off, and I agree. And one could argue that maybe Ryan could have dug a little bit deeper, but once again, we don't really know what was going on. I don't know his body. I don't know what the punch felt like, so I'm not really going to say that with 100% certainty. But also what I will say is this. There's a little bit of a difference, because the fighter that Andrew Ruiz fought in Anthony Joshua, he's not the fighter that Gervonta Tank Davis is. Now, of course, the odds were still stacked against Andrew Ruiz in that fight against Anthony Joshua, and because of the heart and belief in himself, he ended up pulling out in that fight. But Gervonta Tank Davis, he's just a completely different type of fighter. He has great power, great defense, and, a type of fighter like Gervonta Tank Davis, who's very hard to hit in the first place, he can really make you, kind of break you mentally over the course of a fight, especially when he hits as hard as he does. Now, once again, not me saying that Ryan Garcia, even if that were to happen, that he doesn't, that he can't show more heart, but I'm not really sure if heart was the issue. I think Ryan Garcia showed heart. I think that he showed try. I think that he showed somewhat of courage in the fight, but I don't really know how hard the body shot was. And once again, it's a little bit different when you're fighting a fighter like that of Gervonta Tank Davis, who isn't as limited in some of his abilities as what an Anthony Joshua was. But anyway.
Rewind and go back to the beginning of this video, and then pop back into this spot. So, paraphrasing, he says you should have got back up. Now, it's so funny in the world of boxing when your boy Ego say the same things in real time. Like, I don't wait for Andy Ruiz or anybody else to comment in boxing before I say things, right? So I said I personally thought Ryan Garcia quit. And I explained.
Well, he did quit, but the question is, and listen, I don't necessarily have a problem with someone quitting, especially in boxing, if they believe that that is the best for their detrimental health, or if they believe that that is the best for their health, or if they just truly believe, wow, that was a hell of a shot, I really can't get back up from that. So once again, in boxing, I give people a little bit more of a break. Now, in other sports, it can be criticized, in my view, a little bit more. Like when Serena Williams, when she clearly mentally tapped out and had that toxic feminist breakdown against Naomi Osaka in the U.S. Open in 2018, that's something, in my view, that deserves more criticism. Because not only did you have more of a fighting chance, but you're not getting punched in the face in that sport. So you should always be trying to fight back in that particular sport. So it is what it is. Or LeBron James in 2018, where J.R. Smith Of course, he had the mental lapse in that fight, in that, his regular stupid ass, in the finals, dragging the ball out, wasting the time in the clock, and it was overtime, and they had an opportunity to possibly win that first game. That I'm not going to say would have won them the series. Of course, I don't think that they would have beaten Golden State, but it could have potentially put Golden State really up against the ropes. And LeBron James up on the bench was very passive aggressive, and he pretty much was not looking at his teammates, and he quit on them mentally. That those are more things that I criticize. Or when you talk about boxing, like I said, Guillermo Rigondeaux versus Vasily Lomachenko. But like I said, I don't, I'm not really sure how hard to really go on Ryan Garcia here, because like I said, some fighters, they just know when that was pretty much it for them.
In case you missed that explanation, let me go in again. Ryan Garcia, I believe he was likely in pain, but I also believe that he could have tried. He's a young, in shape dude. I think he could have tried and attempted to get up. I don't doubt that he was in.
I think Ryan Garcia, to be honest with you, did try to fight through the pain, because Ryan Garcia, when that punch landed, you could tell that the smile on his face immediately, that he was trying to hide it. But even his smile kind of, gave Gervonta Tank Davis that nod of, yeah, you hit me with a good one. Like I said, I don't know how hard that shot was, but just off of Ryan Garcia's reaction, I think that he tried. I just think that once again that the shot hurt more than likely, probably a little bit more than what we know. Just my view of it, but who knows?
Pain, he got hit with a good shot, a shot to the liver. He looked like he wasn't even like trying, like he didn't want to push through that. So I understand what Andy.
Once again, a liver shot has been told by most boxers or most people in a boxing gym that that is probably the most painful and most disorientating shot that you can probably land. So it's a little bit different than just another blow.
Ruiz Jr. is saying, from the outward appearance of the how it played out, it looks like you could have tried to press on. I mean, we seen another guy who was training in that gym, Oscar Valdez, and he fought, I think it was Scott Quigg fight, with a broken jaw. Like literally his jaw is broken, and he's fighting large portions of the fight with blood all in his mouth, swallowing blood, and clearly that's not comfortable, right? We've seen Muhammad Ali fight 15 rounds in a 15 rounder with a broken jaw. Fighters.
Yeah, that's great, but does every fighter really have to do that to show that they have great heart? There's this idea that people have to go around, the ring, and that they literally have to fight until their life is almost literally on the line in order to win the fight. And don't get me wrong, sometimes that might give an edge to certain fighters, but some fighters know when they're just pretty much done. And don't get me wrong, so that's not always a good mindset to have, of course. And certain people may say, well, that sounds like the mindset of a quitter. In my view, you should always have the mindset that you're going to win. But when there's certain fighters that they get pounded into submission, or they get hit with a certain shot, they're probably going to be like, you know what, I'm not quite sure if I can get back up from that. When Migo Cotto ended up getting pounded into submission against Antonio Margarito in that first fight, he eventually knew when he had enough. It just is what it is. And of course, there is a certain amount of people to where it's like, if you can get them to quit, once a quitter, always a quitter. There's a little bit of that. But there's a little bit of a difference, quitting when I think that it's the right time and when it isn't the right time. And for Ryan Garcia, it may have been the right time. Now, if you're talking about quitting the way that Guillermo Rigondeaux did against Floyd Mayweather Jr., or if we're talking about another fight per se, like how Oscar Valdez kind of quit, in my opinion, in that Shakur Stevenson fight, where he was down on the scorecards clearly, but he clearly was out of options, and eventually he was just trying to swing for the fences, or he was just trying to do things that weren't working. That in my opinion is stuff that you can criticize, but I don't really criticize a fighter that's either getting beat up the whole entire fight or gets hit with a great shot and says, you know what, I've had enough. Because this isn't basketball, this isn't football, this isn't any of those other sports. You get pretty much beat up in some of your fights if you're not good enough for a living. So once again, I don't really criticize these fighters to that greatest of degrees, because I don't know how hard the shot was.
Like Wilder, he fought and he
Right, but not everyone has to fight like Wilder. It just is what it is.
had a torn bicep and a broken hand, like a fractured hand, which required him to be in a sling after the fight. And he got a knockout win over Chris Areola. If you don't know boxing, then look all these things up. Google is your friend. So I'm not trying to sound mean or savage. I'm just being real. Knowing the warrior way and the code of conduct from so many other great boxers, from Wilders to Chavez.
Well, Wilder's not really a great boxer. You guys have been trying to promote him as a great boxer because he's your new, Malcolm X like figure, or I should say Martin Luther King like figure. But other than that, no, Deontay Wilder's not a great boxer.
Senior who fought through pain, and Muhammad Ali and some of the people the Mickey Wards and the Gottis. I really feel like with Ryan's youth and stuff, he could have got back up. He didn't, you know.
He could have potentially got back up. I think that maybe you could argue that, but once again, I don't know how hard the punch was. And sometimes, in my view, just my view of it, we do have to take a look at it and say, what really is the point of getting back up if you're going to get back up and just get ruthlessly knocked out? Because what was there, like 2 minutes left in the round? Or a minute and something left in the round? Like, if Ryan Garcia truly believed that the shot was that debilitating, Ryan Garcia would have not lasted any more than 30 seconds. So it just is what it is. Once again, it depends on the context. It depends on the situation. But once again, when we talk about certain fights like Miguel Cotto versus Antonio Margarito, or De La Hoya versus Bernard Hopkins, or, when Cotto lost to Pacquiao and he even told his corner that he didn't want to continue onwards. Now, one could say, well, Ryan Garcia didn't take that level of a beating. He just got hit with a good body shot, and he could have potentially got back up. And that's true, but there's been a lot of fighters that have went down off of a body shot. So once again, if it would have been just some other shot, then, maybe I would have understood a little bit more. And I understand where ego is coming from. But like I said, boxing is a completely different sport. And those liver shots, they're nothing to mess around with. So once again, I would need to know personally. And of course, there's no way to know that because I'm not Ryan Garcia, how hard the shot actually was.
That's my honest opinion. Now, I understand body shots hurt, liver shots, paralyzing, sends a shock through your body. I get it. But at the same time,
No, you really don't get it because you've never been in the boxing ring professionally. It just is what it is. No, you don't really get it until you get in the ring with someone like Gervonta Tank Davis, who's an A+ level boxer and someone who has A+ level power. No, actually, you don't get it. A lot of these people say, oh, I get it. No, actually, you have no idea. And I'm not saying that I really overall have the greatest of ideas either because I've never been a professional boxer either. But no, like I said, for those of us that have never been in the ring, like I said, we have to somewhat step back a little bit. Don't get me wrong, we can still give our opinions. But, that, like I said, there's a difference between how Guillermo Rigondeaux went out against Vasily Lomachenko, and other fighters that maybe, in my view, quit, in the wrong type of way, at least in my view, versus Ryan Garcia, who could have been very potentially very, very badly hurt.
that's what you signed up for. Not to get hurt, but if
Another fighter that ended up quitting, I believe, Nicholas Walters against Guillermo Rigondeaux. I really overall never commended him too much either. Or excuse me, I never went after him too much either. Like Stephen A. Smith, I remember when that fight happened, and he had completely, ripped Nicholas Walters to shreds. But to be honest with you, I once again didn't really have a huge problem with it because Nicholas Walters, he knew basically that he was not going to beat Lomachenko. And some people may say, well, wouldn't that be, quote unquote quitting? Wouldn't that show that he has a weak mindset? There's just sometimes, especially in a boxing match. Now, once again, I don't think that's necessarily as acceptable in other sports where your health is not as much on the line. Like when we talk about football, basketball, tennis, all those other sports. But in combat sports, it's a little bit different because, dude, a lot of the times, with these fighters, you're going to be 50, 60 some years old when you have wives, a wife and children. You're going to be, slurring your words. You're going to have CTE. You're going to have mental problems. Like, the boxing is nothing to play around with. So like I said, it is what it is. Now, of course, Ryan didn't take that bad of a beating when it came down to it. But like I said, the liver shot is the most painful shot reported by boxers pretty much everywhere. So like I said, we'll see where Ryan Garcia can go from here. But like I said, I don't really go after those fighters too much. But just to talk about the Nicholas Walters, Vasily Lomachenko situation again, I remember when Nicholas Walters, I believe after 6 or 7 rounds, he quit against Vasily Lomachenko. He went in the corner and he congratulated Lomachenko. And a lot of people, of course, said, wow, he was a quitter. What ended up happening in that fight, he was a quitter. In my view, I actually go after more fighters like that of a Caleb Plant, who, in my view, did not truly believe that he was ever going to win that fight in the first place because he was not willing to really be great to win that fight in certain exchanges by really trying to exchange with David Benavidez or at least show him his power. And of course, he doesn't have a great power, but he has enough power, in my view, to possibly mix it up a little bit with David Benavidez, and he was not willing to do that. Of course, he doesn't have the power to completely stand toe-to-toe with him all the time, but he could have tried to push him back a little bit more. That, in my opinion, is worth a little bit more of mentally weak criticism. Ryan Garcia, you could tell that he was a little bit flustered after the knockdown, but he did try to go back in there. It's just that Gervonta Tank Davis, he hit him with a good shot, at least from what we know, and he went down. And who knows, once again, maybe after that he was done. But just like with the Nicholas Walters situation, it wasn't as bad as the Nicholas Walters situation. But Nicholas Walters was getting beat from pillar to post in that fight. Eventually he realized, you know what, I've been trying for 6 or 7 rounds. I don't think it's going to get any better than this. And certain people may say, well, that shows me weak mentally. And you can argue that if you want to. But Nicholas Walters, he's just not a guy that was ever going to beat Lomachenko. And it's the same thing here.
You haven't worked on your defense, then, you signed up for that. Ryan did a lot of trash talk pre-fight. He said he was going to knock out Tank in 2. And when you make these lofty, big promises and what you're going to do and how you're going to end somebody, you're literally letting your undefeated record fall by the wayside in that given moment. So it's kind of a choice. And again, I've seen guys somehow, some way, grit and bear and pick themselves up. So Ryan is not going to get a pass because, we feel sorry for him. For example, if we want to talk about recent, because I've given you some examples with Muhammad Ali's and stuff, this is what makes champions. This is what really shapes your character and defines who you are. There's people who've been shot and drove themselves to the hospital. Crazy things. And this is what separates some people. And in the sport of boxing, and I'm not trying to sound savage, but this is what separates world champions from guys who are very good and maybe don't become world champions. Because
no, heart is a part of it, and all that shit about willing to possibly die in your shield and all sort of shit. And I'm not sure if Ego's necessarily going that far, but to say that that you need to get back up even after possibly risking getting knocked out. I mean, once again, it's really up to the fighter. But no, boxing IQ and boxing intelligence is really what makes the all-time great fighters. Now, of course, you will have to have a great amount of resolve. You will have to have a great amount of grit and determination. But once again, I don't really go after fighters to where they just realize that they just had enough. I don't really go after those fighters. Now, once again, and I know I'm repeating myself, but if it's a Guillermo Rigondeaux situation or a Caleb Plant David Benavidez situation, even though I don't think Caleb Plant really gave up, but you could tell that he truly did not believe he was ever going to win that fight. And there's different circumstances of quitting. I think that Ryan Garcia, that he tried, but once he got hit with that shot and with how repeatedly he was getting hitting, once again, it wasn't the worst ass whooping that I've ever seen. But the fact that it was a liver shot, I'm going to maybe give him the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, maybe he was just very, very badly hurt. And once again, if you're really that badly hurt to the point to where you believe that you really can't get back up anyway, you're going to get back up and then within the next 30 seconds, pretty much get folded over anyway. Because when you get hit in that liver, you almost can't do anything. But like I said, there's a difference between the way Guillermo Rigondeaux went out and say Miguel Cotto versus when he fought Pacquiao Margarito, or Nicholas Walters when he fought Vasily Lomachenko, or Ricky Hatton when he beat up Kostya Tszyu. All these fighters that I mentioned, they seem to have very, very great heart and great resolve and decent mental toughness. But sometimes it's just best to really know that today's not your day. And sometimes it's best to fight for another day, especially if you think you're badly hurt to where you really cannot continue on anyway, or on top of that, to live, really later on in life without any major symptoms. And Ryan Garcia, if he was that badly hurt with the type of power that Gervonta Tank Davis has, he was going to get very badly hurt anyway. So like I said, I don't really go after Ryan Garcia that badly.
World champion, a lot of times you have to, in moments like this, if you're fighting elite fighters and great fighters like Gervonta Davis, who is definitely special, then you got to come with it. And you have to go through the fire. Like, I mean, even like Tyson Fury, Wilder is one of the hardest punchers in boxing history, if not the hardest puncher in boxing history. And Tyson Fury, like somehow, some way, he was getting up from some Wilder shots. That's just the reality.
Yeah, but the difference between Tyson Fury and Ryan Garcia is that, Tyson Fury, of course, he has great mental belief in himself. And I'm not saying that, Ryan Garcia may not have certain mental issues. Of course, he said that he suffered from depression in the past. But, once again, Tyson Fury, he was able to avoid most of Deontay Wilder's major blows. Now, had Wilder been a lot more of a better boxer, and let's say really hit Tyson Fury to the body and was hitting him with repeated right hands, after a while, Tyson Fury, if he had been knocked down multiple times with a bloodied up nose or hit with a good liver shot, he may have said, you know what? It's probably time for me to take a knee. Today's just not my day. So once again, I don't really go after those fighters too hard. And like I said, it wasn't like Ryan Garcia like in Caleb Plant versus David Benavidez, where he clearly was not trying to win the fight. In my view, he was, even though, of course, he was more timid in that second round. But like I said, I give him a little bit of credit because in the sixth round, he was coming back a little bit. I thought that he won the sixth round, and he was starting to gain a little bit more momentum. In the seventh round, he was still throwing a little bit more, trying to gain his confidence back. And, he showed me try. He showed me heart in the fight, but Devonta was just clearly on another level.
Ryan is on bended knee, and, he's not even, it looked like he was trying to, like, was he going to get up? And then he just sat there and just, let the time elapse, and the ref counted him out. So I understand what.
Well, that's exactly what happened. And once again, there's certain fighters that do that. Once again, I don't know how hard the shot was, so I'm not going to go super hard after him.
With Andy Ruiz.
Now, once again, how had Ryan Garcia win that fight and really not tried to win it, barely threw anything, hadn't even tried to win really one round, and just tried to pretty much fight on the back foot and fight scared the whole entire time. And just because you fight on the back foot doesn't mean you're scared. But in my view, Ryan Garcia was not going to win the fight that way, in my view, just not with his abilities. Then I would have criticized him a little bit more. But, with the way the fight went, it pretty much was what I expected.
Is saying, I've seen body shots like Oscar De La Hoya versus Bernard Hopkins, Ryan's promoters. That looked like Oscar couldn't continue. Like he was on the ground, like, just paralyzed. Even Ryan Garcia knocking out Luke Campbell. I would never say that Luke Campbell quit, because to me it looked like you just got blasted with a real body shot. For me, this is just my opinion, and obviously Andy Ruiz Jr. shares similar sentiments. It just the appearance of how it went out. Ryan just let his undefeated record go, all that trash talk, all this stuff, I'm gonna knock Tank out. These are the moments that define you. But another reason, like, why the setup kind of looked weird for me was just based on the fact that, Ryan, he looked cognizant. Again, I'm not doubting he was in pain, but he looked like his eyes, he knew the ref was in front of him and stuff like that. So, moreover, what I believe happened is that Ryan Garcia had already been dropped and got back up, and he was getting hit with big shots, and he lost 3 rounds in a row. He hadn't really badly hurt.
I'm not going to say that he lost 3 rounds in a row, because actually I thought that he won round 6. He hit Gervonta Tank Davis with some good shots in that round, and he was starting to open up his offense. And that's why I'm saying I don't think that he necessarily quit in the same way that other fighters quit. Like an example, like Anthony Joshua, when he fought Andrew Ruiz, he was pretty much taking the town to Anthony, and Anthony was so scared in that fight that he was really barely throwing anything. So someone could say that even Anthony Joshua, even though he was getting beat up in that fight, that quit was a little bit more worth the criticism than this one, just in my view. Because once again, Ryan Garcia, I don't really know how badly, that body shot hurt, and I thought that he had won the 6th round. I thought that he was trying to open up his offense, but if that body shot did hurt enough, then I understand.
Tank or done anything to the point where he would have.
Hiya, have you heard of Monopoly Go? It's Monopoly, but it goes, like everywhere. Watch, you roll.
the utmost confidence, and then you get sat down again, you get parked a second time, and there's a little bit of a delayed reaction. And to be honest, it just seemed like Ryan didn't want to get turned into a meme because he knew things weren't looking up. But those are the moments that, again, define you. Imagine if Floyd Mayweather, when Shane Mosley cracked him hard in that second round, imagine if he did what Ryan Garcia did and he just buckled and took a knee and then just sat there. Then he would no longer be the Floyd Mayweather we know. He would no longer have got to 50-0.
That's understandable, and I understand where Ego is coming from. And like I said, he could be correct. Maybe Ryan Garcia, maybe he did have a little bit more left in him. But like I said, this was a liver shot. This was not a shot to mess around with. Like I said, a liver shot is something, once again, that is the most painful punch to land. And I understand a lot of people, once again, they criticize boxers, like when Jorge Linares, when he quit against Lomachenko, because Lomachenko, I believe, landed a good liver shot, and they're like, oh, he got straight back up, right? But when you're in pain with that liver shot, man, like, you really, really, really don't want to take any more pain from that. And some people, of course, they say, well, you need to get back up, you need to try. A liver shot, once again, is the most probably debilitating punch that you can take. I mean, it limits you so much because when that liver shot lands, it really makes you feel like you have to shit yourself.
And he would no longer have that legendary comeback from rounds 3 through 12, right, that he had versus Shane Mosley. And I interviewed Shane Mosley about that, and he was like, man, I almost had him. And Floyd, fortunately for the dog that he has in himself, he doesn't have to say that. He doesn't have to say, oh, I almost did this, or I wish I could have. He lived it, and he made the choice, like other great fighters, like Andre Ward versus Kovalev when he got dropped, or the Darnell Boone fight when he got dropped. He made a conscious choice that I'm going to go out how I want to go out. And, either you're going to have to take me out or I'm finishing this fight. And it would have been nice to see Ryan Garcia try to push that little bit extra out. And
I understand where Ego's coming from, and I certainly understand his perspective, and he could be potentially right. Maybe Ryan Garcia, maybe he could have put a little bit more effort into it. I certainly understand where people are coming from. But like I said, I don't really, go on those boxes too hard, especially with the liver shot. Had it been another shot and Ryan Garcia not got back up, I certainly would have 100% agreed. Had it been an overhand left and Ryan Garcia, not got back up, I certainly, would have agreed. But a liver shot, like I said, that's a completely different level of pain, at least, when it ends up landing. So, once again, we'll see. I understand where he's coming from. If you're talking about the Joshua versus Andrew Reed situation, I believe that, that's a little bit more understandable. Or the Vasily Lomachenko, Guillermo Rigondeaux fight, or the Caleb Plant versus David Benavidez fight. Those are all fights where I think they're a little bit different. But a liver shot, once again, every boxer always says that is hands down the most painful shot that can potentially land. So like I said, I don't know. We'll see. But we're going to see truly how much heart Ryan Garcia has. Ego could be 100% correct. I could be a little bit more correct in this. Once again, we'll see. We'll see. I'm going to be very interested to see where Ryan Garcia goes from here. I would love to see a Rolly Romero or Isaac Pitbull Cruz fight. I would love to see those two fights. I don't think they're going to put him in there with those fighters immediately. But I'd love to see those two fights. We're going to see truly how much resolve Ryan Garcia has in some of those fights, because let me tell you what, those two fighters, especially after Ryan Garcia's loss, with their power and with some of the things that they got on their side in terms of athleticism, they're really going to push Ryan Garcia to the limit. And that's when you really, really get exposed for the type of character that you are, when you get pushed not only physically but intellectually, spiritually, all those things. That's when you really get to see who they are. Once again, boxing is a little bit different than other sports because you can get hit with a certain shot and you just know that you're not going to come back well from that. So I don't really have a huge problem with Ryan Garcia taking the knee, because if it was really that bad of a body shot, maybe he felt debilitated to the point to where he just believed that it wasn't going to end up, good either way. So, it is what it is. So once again, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But anyways, that's pretty much about it for today. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see where Ryan Garcia goes. Where Ryan Garcia goes from here. But anyways, that's really about it. Thank you so much for watching. We'll talk to you all later.